Hello, I'm Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco. This critical incident briefing concerns a deputy-involved shooting in the city of Indian Wells. When we have a critical incident, we want to share as much information as possible as soon as the investigation allows. On Monday, February 15th, 2021, at 7:25 a.m., the Riverside County Sheriff's Department received a call regarding an assault with a deadly weapon in the area of Simon Drive and Highway 111 in the city of La Quinta. Dispatch received information that an adult male driving a black Mercedes had pointed a handgun and made threatening statements toward the driver of another vehicle.
911, what's your emergency?
No license plate, black SL63 convertible Mercedes. Gentleman just stuck a gun in my face at Chase Bank on the Highway 111. He's turning left onto the Highway 111.
Chase Bank on Highway 111 and where?
Headed towards Washington. He's on Highway 111 headed towards Washington in La Quinta, towards Indian Wells. It's a black Mercedes SL60. There's a dealer purchase plate on the back. It's an AMG racing model. He's now racing down the street, cutting in between cars. He's brandishing a gun. He stuck it in my face. Now he's racing towards the Esmeralda Resort. I did nothing other than slam on my brakes to stop him from running into me. And then he got out and did this.
Investigators later learned that the suspect, identified as Royce J Robertson, stopped his car on the roadway in front of the victim's car. Robertson exited his car while holding a gun and walked over to the victim who was still seated in his car. Robertson pointed his gun at the victim and yelled, "Do you want to die today?" After a short confrontation, Robertson got back into his car and drove away. While deputies were responding to the location, dispatch relayed information that Robertson was traveling westbound on Highway 111. Responding deputies located Robertson's vehicle near the intersection of Desert Horizons and Highway 111. A deputy attempted a traffic stop, but Robertson would not pull over. Robertson drove past the entrance of the Desert Horizons Country Club and stopped his car just inside the gate. As a second deputy arrived at the location, Robertson exited his car and began yelling at the deputies. At one point, Robertson pulled a handgun from a holster inside his jacket and pointed it at the deputies. What only Robertson knew, and what investigators later determined, was that his weapon was an air pistol that looked nearly identical to a real handgun. At that time, a deputy-involved shooting occurred. The suspect was struck by the deputy's gunfire and ultimately succumbed to his injuries despite life-saving efforts performed by the deputies and medical personnel at the scene. As a warning, some viewers may find this video disturbing, and it is not suitable for children.
Johnny 7, I'll be on a stop of the vehicle just inside the country club. Johnny 7, clear for the plate.
Johnny 7, go ahead.
2, looks like Sam Nora 6406. Hey, stay in your vehicle! Stay in your vehicle! Get in your fucking vehicle!
Shoot me! Shoot me!
Hey, turn around! Turn around! Turn around!
Turn
around!
Shoot me or I will shoot you!
Hey!
No!
Hey!
Medical, we got one down, shot fired. Deputies are okay.
Here is a replay of the suspect's actions at half speed. The suspect, Royce J Robertson, a 33-year-old resident of Joshua Tree, died at the scene. The weapon recovered at the scene was a Crossman full-auto P1 4.5mm BB air pistol.
The video you just saw was released by Riverside County Sheriff's Department YouTube page on April 1st, 2021. What is the significance of April 1st? April 1st is also known as April Fool's Day. April Fool's Day is an annual custom on 1 April consisting of practical jokes and hoaxes. The purpose of this video is to provide transparency to the public on an incident where a man with a BB gun was shot dead by cops. So you would think they would want to be extra sensitive to little details, which they seem to be for the most part, yet they release it on April 1st, which is kind of like saying that, oh, we're just joking, haha. I don't know. It just seems like a very poor choice of day to release this video if you're trying to provide damage control. If that's your purpose, it's a rather poor day. They could have done it April 2nd or, you know, the last day of March instead, but no, had to be April Fool's Day. Now, if you count the number of days from February 15th, which was President's Day, that was the day Royce Robertson was killed, the incident occurred. If you count from that day to April 1st, you get 13 days in February, the month of March, 31 days, and then 1 day in April, 13 plus 31 plus 1, 45. Exactly a month and a half. Seems awfully exact. It seems to have been very deliberately released on April Fool's Day. God knows what reason. If you'd like to read the written version of this blog, which is part 3 of A Justifiable Homicide, which was a series I did on the death of Royce Robertson, you can find it here at batshitcave.blogspot.com. This one was uploaded on October 11th of this year. You don't have to be familiar with these written blogs to be able to benefit from this video here. This video is intended to be sort of a standalone. But obviously, I do encourage you to read at least the first 2 blogs because they help provide background and familiarize you with the case of what occurred here. And I will be building off a lot of that here. But the difference between the first 2 blogs and this last one that I did is that this is the first one that I did with the complete investigative report in my possession, which you can see was uploaded here on the Riverside County Sheriff Department's website on September 7th of this year, which was just over a month ago from the day I recorded this. If you want to find out information on, you know, some type of incident like this, you just need to figure out where it occurred, where the county that the person or people in question died in. You go to the county website and you just follow the links for Freedom of Information Act requests. And a lot of times it's free, or you just only pay for the shipping on, you know, CDs or paper or whatever it is that they're going to give you. In this case, it was all online. So it's pretty convenient, although it did take a long time for them to finally complete the case and upload all this stuff. So as you saw in the video, it was basically a suicide by cop kind of situation. That's kind of what people are generally agreeing occurred there. And it's pretty hard to argue with the video. It seems very conclusive. But the thing is, Royce Robertson lived in Joshua Tree. And if you look at this map, you can see there's Joshua Tree. And he died like way down here. There's Indian Wells where he died. And here's La Quinta where the first altercation occurred. So, you know, if he wanted to die suicide by cop, he didn't have to go all the way down there. I mean, he could have just, you know, hassled someone in Joshua Tree. And so the first question is, what was he doing way down here 50 or so miles away that early in the morning? He didn't need to do that in order to, you know, have his suicide by cop moment. The day Royce Robertson was shot, police investigators went to his home residence in Joshua Tree and interviewed his roommate. And here are some quotations from the report. This first one is the police investigators basically summing up the responses of the roommate. And then here are some actual quotations from the roommate as well. Now, Royce Robertson's roommate was an artist, and I believe he was involved in glass blowing. And him and Robertson were opening up a gallery, or they were reopening a gallery that had previously featured Royce Robertson's ex-girlfriend's works. So, according to his roommate, they were supposed to put the sign up that day on the 15th, the day Royce Robertson died. So they had plans to put up that sign, and the roommate says here, He sent me a text at like 5 a.m., but it was all making plans for the art gallery like next week, which I found a little weird because we had made plans to put the sign up today. So he's saying he got a text from Royce Robertson that morning, the morning that he died, about, putting up, making plans for the art gallery next week. Now, where is that text? Is this it here? We got several texts in the report, and none of them talk about making plans at the gallery next week. In fact, this is the only one that even mentions the gallery, and this is all it says. The gallery needs those 3 colors. Make that shit patriotic in the hippiest way we can, which is a lot more in one day than anything else. It just sounds like someone who's manic. He's in a manic, euphoric state, and he's just basically saying, sorry, man, I'm too high. Forget it. You can see that sounds like he might be blowing off some plans, but he doesn't say anything about next week. So whatever text message this roommate was referring to here about making plans next week, it doesn't seem to be in this report. So I don't know why they would include some texts and not others, and especially since, direct reference is being made to a text message by his roommate. I don't know why they wouldn't actually include that particular text in this report. You could take a leap and say, oh, maybe they're covering something up, but I don't know. I just don't know. It's just something that's strange, but doesn't really give us any information with regard to what Royce Robertson was doing that morning specifically. They also interviewed his parents, and the family had no explanation as to why Royce was in the city of La Quinta. So they didn't know either. They talk about how the coffee company he ran, Joshua Tree Coffee, had accounts down there, but they remarked that they didn't think he was really actively involved in the finances as much as he used to be. They're saying he's just kind of a spokesperson for the company these days. They mentioned that he did send his sister a text message. They apparently spoke with his sister, and she didn't mention anything about Royce going down there to meet her. So it seems like there's just no reason for him to be down there that anyone really knows of. However, his sister did receive a text message from him as well. 03:30 hours at 05:47 hours, Royce sent his sister poetry via text message. Royce was a night person, and it was not uncommon for him to text early in the morning. His sister had no idea why Royce was in Coachella Valley. He might have been coming to see her, but he did not call, and she was not expecting him. So she's saying, according to the investigator, that she was not expecting him that morning. Royce Robertson's parents are saying that her sister didn't mention anything about Royce showing up and that she didn't seem to be expecting him. Okay? Now, look at this. This is from the Desert Sun, the Palm Springs Desert Sun, which is like a local paper there. She received a text message that morning from her brother, advising he was heading to her home in Rancho Mirage after running an errand at the bank. Now, they're talking about his sister. Where did the Palm Springs Desert Sun get this information? I mean, that's not the kind of thing you would just make up, is it? Who are you going to trust? Are you going to trust the official report that comes from the investigators themselves, or are you going to trust the news media? But it's like, who fed the Desert Sun that information? It's just kind of bizarre. And unfortunately, this Desert Sun quote here is really the only thing we have to go on, because it's talking about an errand at the bank. Nobody else mentioned an errand at the bank, so I guess we have to look into that and see if there's anything to it, as questionable as the quote is on the surface. This image here is from the Riverside County Sheriff's Department video, critical incident video that I'll be referring to a lot. And this red car is supposed to be Royce Robertson's. And this is the Chase Bank here. So this is the Chase Bank parking lot. And this blue car, this is the person that called 911, caused the cops to show up, that shot Royce Robertson dead later on. This 911 caller here, he was coming from Lowe's. All right, and this was very early in the morning. This was on Monday. It was President's Day, Washington's birthday observed, the day after Valentine's Day. And apparently this Lowe's, I looked it up, they open at like 6 a.m. So they open very early in the morning. So he's coming from Lowe's, and they meet here and something happens that we'll talk about in a moment, but here's the quote from the report. It's pretty short. As he passed the Ulta store, he saw a black Mercedes S160 AMG convertible two-door with dealer plates driving southbound towards him from the area of Chase Bank. All right, so when they say as he passed the Ulta store, they're talking about the 911 car. He was coming from Lowe's and he was passing the Ulta store, which I guess is this right here. It's Ulta, some kind of beauty store or something. And here's a direct quote from the 911 caller. And there's only one last parking lot thing, which is generally people coming out of Chase Bank drive-through. Right? So the 911 caller is referencing Chase Bank twice, almost completely suggesting that that's where Royce Robertson came from. Now look at this lane here. That's the drive-through lane for Chase Bank where you go to the ATM. So it kind of looks like Royce Robertson just came from Chase Bank, which begs the question, well, did he just use the ATM? If he's about to die and he's losing his mind and losing his marbles, what is he doing? Why does he care about a banking transaction? And that gets mentioned nowhere in the report. And a friend of Royce Robertson's actually reached out to me online and confirmed with me that Royce did have a Chase Bank account. And this person we will call JT. Now, on March 3rd, 2021, which was almost a month after Royce Robertson was shot and killed, this officer Sanchez looked at the Chase Bank ATM footage. And here's direct from the report. I did not see any of the vehicles matching the description provided. Period. He didn't see anything. That's it. And now, for some reason, a couple weeks later, Officer Moody looked at the same surveillance footage, and he doesn't say whatever. He doesn't explain why he's looking at the footage, even though another officer already looked at it. He says, I watched the Chase Bank video surveillance. The camera angle showing the drive-through ATM is the only camera that captured anything. At 51 minutes and 41 seconds into the video, you see the suspect and victim come to a stop off in the distance. The suspect is seen walking back to the victim vehicle and then shortly after back to his vehicle. The top is down on the suspect vehicle. The video is very grainy, especially for things off in the distance. The main focus of this video is to capture the drive-up exterior ATM. So first of all, how is it that Officer Moody saw something on the video that Officer Sanchez didn't see? And why did a second officer need to look at the footage again? Now, keep in mind, the ATM is right here, and that's where the camera is. This is where you see that red marker there. Supposedly that's where Royce Robertson, see he stopped here. And then he got out of his car and went back here and said, hey, do you want to die today? This happened right here. That Chase Bank camera is pointed this way. All right, so it couldn't have seen over here. It would not have captured it. It's too far away, and it's just, no. Even if you could see the car way back here, which you can't, Royce is on the opposite side of it, so you wouldn't be able to, there's no way the officer can confirm that Royce actually stood next to the car. He might be able to confirm that, Royce's car stopped and he walked back, but then he can't see anything happening back here. It's just too far away, and it's blocked. The camera's angle is blocked. Now here are still pictures from the official report, and I'm assuming this is the angle. Look, here's the ATM. That's the Chase. See? That's inside here that we're looking at, staring out this way. All right, look at that. Way down there. That's where they would be. Now, this is supposed to be Royce Robertson's car, I assume, leaving the parking lot. And that does seem to fit the description. It was a black Mercedes convertible. You can't see it very well, but it's close enough to match the description. All right, and this is supposedly the 911 caller's vehicle, I guess, which he described his own car as being beige. It's described as gray in various parts of the interview, or in various parts of the report. Looks gray to me, but the quality is not that great here, so it could be beige, and the shading just might be off for whatever reason. All right, so now look at this picture. This circle here, that was, the investigator did that, all right? This is my arrow, this green one. But that circle is the investigator. So I assume he's going, hey, look at that. That's what I saw. Now, that car there looks white. It doesn't look gray and it doesn't look black. It doesn't seem to match the color of either vehicle. It doesn't even look beige. Again, it's hard to tell because the quality's so bad, but look at that. Look at how far away and blurry that is. How can you even tell if someone's walking back? I mean, perhaps with video, you can see it, but you definitely can't see a car parked way back here. I mean, let's look again, okay? This is the camera. It's pointed this way, all right? So look, the only car it could possibly see is Royce Robertson's. His car is black. That car we just saw in that still image is not black. It looks white. If he walked back to the 911 car's car, as depicted specifically in this video here, that video would not have captured it, period. Okay? So I don't know what this officer says he saw, but it's kind of suspicious that the first officer didn't see anything. And then now the second officer sees, Royce Robertson get out of his car and walk back. I mean, how do you even know? I don't know. It's hard to swallow. What the officer says and what we're seeing image-wise here isn't really, it's not really backing up what he says at all. Where's your evidence? You've got the evidence to back it up. Why isn't it in the report? It's not, I don't think that's a lot to ask. What is the point of making this stuff public if you're not going to be transparent about it? You're not going to very clearly show what backs up your claim. That makes people, like me go, well, you're not being transparent. So, why should we trust you? So according to the 911 caller, everything began right here as he left Lowe's and he was about to leave this whole, area. He was trying to go out this way so he can get up on here, turn right. I think that's Simon. And then left on the 111. This is the 111 here. All right. So he's just trying to leave. And then Royce, coming from the area of Chase Bank, steals his right of way and blocks him like a total asshole. And that's kind of where everything begins, according to this 911 car. Now, there were no witnesses that saw this. And if there were witnesses, they're not mentioned anywhere in this report. The only person who, quote unquote, witnessed this was the person that the 911 caller says he was speaking to on speakerphone in his car or on Bluetooth or whatever. So, we'll talk more about that in a minute. But no witnesses have come forward to confirm what this 911 caller has said happened. No eyewitnesses. But it's very clear in the report that this is where everything started. But if you look back at my first blog on this topic where I quote Sheriff Bianco and other media sources, we get this story here. And this was on video, by the way. I typed this out from video. He actually says this. Sheriff Bianco on the scene. I believe he said this the day of the incident. The original encounter was near the intersection of Simon and 111 in La Quinta. The victim of that exchange ended up pulling into a parking lot to get away from that other driver. But he followed him into the parking lot, and then that is where the exchange happened. So this whole thing that he just described right there is, they took that out. That no longer happened. Somehow that was just erased. And it was also published in other media sources, including mercurynews.com. Look at this. The man said he had pulled into a parking lot off Highway 111 in La Quinta to get away from a driver in a black Mercedes-Benz with temporary Arizona plates. The Mercedes driver followed him, then got out of the car, displayed a handgun, and asked if he wanted to die. Royce Robertson wasn't following him. Look at this diagram. This is from their critical incident video. This is supposed to be exactly what happened. That's Royce's car, the red one. He's not following the guy in the blue car. The guy in the blue car just came from Lowe's. And he didn't even encounter Royce Robertson until they both were going to meet at this intersection here. So what were they talking about? They make it sound like something happened out here, and then the 911 car fleed into the parking lot, and then Royce followed him. So how does a story change that much? I mean, that tells me there's something fishy going on here. And they just, like I said, they just completely ignore all of this by the time April Fool's Day comes around and they release the body cam video. There's nothing about this exchange. It's like it disappears into thin air. The 911 caller told me that he was on the phone with his electrician, redacted, while this encounter occurred. He spat on me and he attacked my car. I had a witness. I was on the phone with my electrician. I'm on speakerphone with my electrician, so he's a witness to this whole thing. He keeps saying the guy that isn't present, that can't see what's going on, is a witness because he's on the phone and he can hear stuff. That's kind of stretching things. I mean, when someone says witness, you assume they're standing there watching it, an eyewitness. So there was no eyewitnesses to this. So this whole entire first encounter with Royce Robertson, which caused this guy to call 911, there's only one person who saw it and can corroborate it. And that's the guy that actually called 911. Yet, the incident report and the cops and everything, they keep describing this incident as if it's fact, as if they all witnessed it, as if they all saw it. But they're just going off the word of this guy. And we don't even know who he is. So how do we know this incident even occurred the way they said? The electrician appeared confused as to what he heard and what the 911 caller told him. The electrician told me he thought a drunk was trying to harass him. It was comical more than anything else. So that's one of the officers interviewing the electrician guy. This witness doesn't really corroborate much, I mean, it's not very helpful. Now, if someone's bored and flipping through YouTube looking for juicy body cam footage, they might come across this video here. And, if they don't watch the whole thing and they just sort of zero in on this section here, they're going to come away going, well, yeah, of course the police were justified. A crazy man pulled a gun on them. What else are they going to do? They had to shoot him, right? But just after this scene concludes, the Sheriff Bianco states that this was actually a non-deadly BB gun, an air pistol. So while the police may have reacted the same way, even if they knew it was an air pistol, which we're told they didn't, it does complicate it. It's not as cut and dry. And you'd be surprised if you look at the comments on this video, you'd be surprised how many people don't seem to be aware that this is a BB gun. Okay? So that's the first thing, is that your perception of the video changes if you know that this is a non-deadly handgun. I mean, and because that perception would be different with that knowledge, I believe that's the reason that police withheld that information for a month and a half. They allowed the public to believe for a month and a half that Royce Robertson pulled a deadly handgun on the cops. And the investigative report proves this. This is from investigator G. Castaneda. After a briefing, I conducted a walkthrough of the scene at 11:30 hours. I noted item GC119. The black pistol was loaded with a compressed air canister that ejected out of the magazine that resembled an actual firearm. I rendered the weapon safe by removing the magazine and locking the slide to the rear. The gun was then photographed and collected by forensic tech Marcato. When he says he walked through the scene, he means that day, that morning at 11:30. So police knew that same day that the incident happened that the gun was not real. Now you might say, well, what does that really matter? You know what I mean? He pulled a gun on them. What were they supposed to do? Okay. All right. Well, then why didn't they tell the public that? Why did they withhold this information for a month and a half? If it wasn't a big deal, if they were still justified, they should have just told the public, oh, by the way, it was an air pistol, it was a BB gun. Okay. So you have to ask yourself, why didn't they tell the public right away? Why did they wait so long? Because they had to go into damage control mode. They had to be careful how they release the information because it could reflect bad on them. All right? Even if they were justified. So the question is, if the police responding to the scene knew that Royce Robertson may have had a BB gun and not a deadly gun, if they were informed of that information, would they have responded differently? I mean, why didn't the cops know that when Royce Robertson actually told the guy who called 911? Royce Robertson actually told him that it was a BB gun. And how do we know this? Well, he told us himself, the witness. Look, these are quotes. This is from the coroner's report. The 911 caller called 911, reported the incident, but did not state the weapon was possibly a BB gun. That's from the coroner's report. 911 caller told me that during this encounter, the suspect, Royce Robertson, told him the gun was just a fucking BB gun. 911 caller said the suspect removed the magazine to show him, but he could not tell whether it was real or not. Said he has poor vision up close and was trying to look down. So notice, he didn't say that he didn't look at it. He was saying that his vision is poor, okay? So he's, I guess, looking at it and it's all blurry and he can't really tell and he's freaked out because this guy's threatening him. The electrician said he heard the suspect pull out what he said was a BB gun. All right, now think about that. What is he saying there? I guess if you're on the phone and you hear someone say, "I'm taking out a BB gun right now," you can say that you heard them take it out, but you weren't there to see it. So how do you really know that he took it out? You see, this whole thing with the electrician is just kind of, I don't know, not very credible. Here's the gun Royce Robertson pointed at the cops and at the 911 caller, presumably. And it's under $200. It's nothing fancy. Okay? Crossman full auto CO2 powered air rifle pistol. Okay? Notice how kind of basic it looks. I mean, it's kind of cool. It looks very real, of course. I wouldn't have been able to. I'd be afraid if someone pulled this on me. I'm no expert in guns. And this little thing here, what's that? Now, here is the... Look at this. Look how hard this is to read. See how that's all scrunched up there and all fat and wide, redacted? I'm not looking for sympathy here, but I'm just telling you, when you go and get these, Freedom of Information Act requests, this is how they give you information a lot of times. Look at this big gap. There's pages and pages of this. You've got to go through it, and this is why a lot of people might just go, "Oh, forget it. I don't have the time for all this." And so they just listen to the news and they just believe what the news says, simply because they're too lazy to look through it. Well, look, check this out. Interview with, and I'm not going to say his name, but there it is. That's the name of the 911 caller. All right? I don't think they intended to release that publicly. I think they just, there's like over 600 pages in here, and someone was just crossing stuff out and probably just went, yeah, I got, okay, another one. All right, all right, good enough. But they missed it. They missed crossing out his name a couple times, and as a result, this person's name is now public knowledge. It's publicly available. Whether they intended it or not, this is how they released it. Okay, so it's out there. And I'm not telling anyone to go find him or anything like that. I just thought that was obviously worth mentioning here. Let's take a look at the items that were on Royce Robertson's body when he died. Brown boots, lanyard with key, and handcuff key. Yellow metal handcuffs in leather case. Pepper spray. Belt. Knife with leather case. Yellow metal knife with metal case. Empty leather case. Kershaw pocket knife. Espada cold steel pocket knife. Why do you have all these knives? Taser. Key fobs. Black cell phone, blue jeans. Black leggings. Black jacket coat. Brown leather shoulder holster. Burgundy sweater. So why did he have all these knives? Well, these were ornamental knives. They were kind of collector knives. They weren't to go stabbing people with. They were all within legal lengths. Royce knew, according to his parents, he knew the legal length of knife he could carry. And believe it or not, out in that area, it is not abnormal to see locals carrying a knife by their side. It's just a thing. It's not like everyone's stabbing everyone all the time, but it's just a thing over there. So it's not that weird. And the people that knew him, this was part of his image. He was about to start a clothing company. So he was into clothing and kind of a sort of bling. He had these, emeralds on his fingers and bracelets and stuff. So this was part of his fashion, you could say. According to the people who knew him, having those knives on him wasn't that weird. Okay? What doesn't make sense at least to his friend JT, who told me that he didn't normally carry handcuffs. He didn't normally carry a taser, and he didn't normally carry pepper spray. Those are items that cops carry. And in fact, peerless handcuffs in particular are law enforcement grade. You know, I don't know if these specific ones he had were law enforcement grade, but if you look, you'll find that Peerless does supply handcuffs for cops. So to me, this points at the question, were these items planted on his body? Those particular items, the pepper spray, the taser, and the handcuffs. Why would they plant it on his body? Well, although the video shows what should be a slam dunk, case closed kind of thing, obviously a man pulled the gun on the cops and obviously they were justified in shooting him. But it's not that simple because this is during the defund the police era, right? People are very sensitive about cops shooting someone, especially if they're carrying a BB gun. You would think anyway, because people freak out so much, the George Floyd thing was still sort of fresh in the air. So the motive for them planting these items on the body would be to help make sure that there's no, it's damage control. There's no legal issues, to minimize what would probably be, a reaction from the public. Now, what don't you see on this list of items? A wallet. Where was his wallet? How did they figure out who he was? Well, here it is right here. I attempted to gain information regarding the identity of the subject by means of the vehicle registration. I asked ADOT to check the VIN to determine if they had any information on file. I was given the name of Royce Robertson. So they had to use the vehicle registration and the VIN number to figure out who he was, meaning he didn't have his wallet on. How could he have performed an ATM transaction without his wallet or his debit card on? You see? So by eliminating the wallet and the ID, it kind of eliminates the whole line of thought regarding the ATM transaction. You see? They're kind of part of the same thing here in terms of the narrative. So by just sort of ignoring the wallet and ignoring the Chase banking transaction, it all just kind of goes away quietly, right? Well, that tells me that maybe there was a Chase Bank transaction and maybe they don't want people to know about it. And that opens up a whole can of worms that should probably be looked into further. But what can you or I do sitting here at a computer? I don't know. I'm just pointing it out. His big thing was helping the community. I just don't understand what he was doing carrying a gun. You see, this quote is from his parents. The investigators didn't tell his parents that he was carrying a BB gun. That's why they're so confused. When they say, I don't understand why he was carrying a gun, they think he was carrying a real gun with lead bullets. Now, let's not forget that the reason Royce Robertson was shot and killed was because a man called 911 and told them that Royce pulled a gun on him. He didn't tell them that it was a BB gun. He said, somebody pulled a gun on me and stuck it in my face and threatened to kill me. All right? The police showed up and they shot and killed Royce Robertson. So we need to know who this 911 caller is. So here's what he said when interviewed. I'm used to have a production company in LA. Shut that down, moved out here rehabbing a house. I'm re-entering real estate, but I do more like day trading. Royce Robertson's eyes, we're jumping around here in the quotations. Royce Robertson's eyes were just bugged out, like he was tracked out on something. Cottonmouth, strings of cotton, all deep, like tons of them. Like he's not foaming at the mouth, but within his mouth. And it was spitting onto me. I was like, he'd been out all night. He was on something, man. He was on some drugs. I want to make that clear. All right. According to the toxicology report, they only found THC in his system, which is cannabis. So, maybe I didn't read the toxicology report correctly, but that's all I saw in there. And then he goes, it's just a fucking BB gun. And he disengages the clip. I need bifocals. And so I don't know if it's really a BB gun, but it was all tactiled out and it looked like a real gun. And here's another quote. I just remember saying wow, this is a serious gun. And when he took the magazine out, even if I had looked, I had the vision thing where it would have just been a blur, What does a BB gun magazine look like versus a regular? But he even kept saying it's only a BB gun. So first of all, he says it's all tactiled out. Here's some pictures of it, all right? This isn't all tactiled out. This is exactly how it looked on the Amazon ad, all right? This little piece here, that's the only extra feature. See, there's a picture from the report itself. It looks exactly like the Amazon one. So, for someone who doesn't know much about guns, it might look like a serious tactiled out gun. But it really wasn't. It's under $200. Now look at this. The magazine clip, you can see through it on both sides. So if Royce Robertson pulled it out and showed it to him, you can see, you don't have to be an expert to see that those aren't bullets there. That's a air canister, okay? You can even see a BB up here. Initially, he says, I need bifocals. And so I don't know if it's really a BB gun. So he's basically saying, my eyesight is bad, and that's why I couldn't see and tell the difference, all right? He's saying it's his eyesight. Now, later in the interview, he says, even if I had looked, I had the vision thing where it would have just been a blur. So now he's saying he didn't look at all. Well, which one is it? Did you look? Or did you, change your story to say, well, I didn't look. And even if I did, I wouldn't have. So, is he being coached here by the interviewer? Or is he just sort of backtracking going, oh, wait a minute, I better not say that I knew it was a BB gun. Because if I said I saw the clip, then maybe I wouldn't be able to deny that I knew it was a BB gun. And then it would be suspicious that I didn't tell 911 that it was a BB gun. You see what I mean? You see how important this detail is? This is not a small detail. And that's why it's important for us to know who this guy was, because his story is a little bit suspect, and his call to the police is what caused them to come and kill a man who was holding a BB gun. All right? And like I said earlier, we don't have any witnesses to anything he said in the initial encounter. We have a guy on a telephone saying that he witnessed something that he didn't see. It was very tactical looking. It was all tricked out. Maybe there was extra ammo clip on it. Maybe there was like a scope. He starts to say scope, a laser or something on it. Well, that's funny because that is a laser scope right there. So he recognized the laser scope, but he couldn't recognize other details. You see, this magazine clip is about the same size, maybe bigger than that laser scope. But, he didn't look at it, right? So he couldn't see it. The main thing was just these rings, That's what was in my face. He had like big bedazzled emeralds. No, like here and here, here and here. So he's pointing to his hand to show the interviewer like, yeah, he had rings here on his fingers. So he was able to make out these little rings on Royce Robertson's fingers, but he couldn't make out the magazine clip. You see, if he can make out little details on the rings, he could make out a little compressed air capsule.
911, what's your emergency?
No license plate, black SL63 convertible Mercedes. Gentleman just stuck a gun in my face at Chase Bank on the Highway 111. He's turning left onto the Highway 111.
Chase Bank on Highway 111 and where?
Headed towards Washington. He's on Highway 111 headed towards Washington in Batista, towards Indian Wells. It's a black Mercedes SL60. There's a dealer purchase plate on the back. It's an AMG racing model. He's now racing down the street, cutting in between cars. He's brandishing a gun. He stuck it in my face. Now he's racing towards the Esmeralda Resort. I did nothing other than slam on my brakes to stop him from running into me. And then he got out and did this.
Now, one thing that a lot of people found notable upon looking at some of the comments online was the calm demeanor of the 911 caller. I mean, he sounds perhaps a little bit on edge, but he's pretty lucid in giving detail. And when you look at the whole 911 transcript, I mean, he's giving a play-by-play. He says, here's a quote right here. So then he gets in his car and goes, and he's driving his car like a race car, and I decide I'm going to get his plate. And don't follow him. They're telling me not to follow him. Okay? That's nowhere in the transcript. The whole transcript is in this investigative report. At no time in there does the dispatcher tell him, don't follow Royce Robertson. In fact, it almost seems like they're like on edge, like asking him, oh, what's he doing next? Where's he going now? And the 911 caller just naming off the streets and, oh, now he's stopped. Oh, now he's going. Now he's taking the top. Now he's putting the top up on his convertible, like a play-by-play. So that's a direct contradiction. What he's saying, they're telling him, that's not anywhere in the transcript, which means that either he's lying or the real or entire transcript was not published in this report. I'm not following him, but I'm on the 111 and he is approaching the resort, the Esmeralda resort. I'm hoping that you guys don't let this guy get away. I'm going to do my citizen's right to keep observing him in support of your being able to pull him over. He says he's not following him and then proceeds to say everything he's doing as he's following him. So he is following him. So, and he's giving like a play-by-play. This doesn't seem like a guy who's afraid for his life, all right? It doesn't seem like a guy who's on the defensive. It seems like he's on the offensive. He's chasing Royce Robertson now. You see? If someone threatens you with a gun, threatens your life, that's going to shake you up. Are you going to follow that person the way this guy's doing? And then he's driving around going, hey, don't you guys have any cops anywhere? Where's all your cops? You know? So there's no cops in Indian Wells right now or in Palm Desert. He just passed El Dorado. He's giving like a play-by-play. This doesn't sound like a victim to me. This sounds like a guy directing things. They're in front of me. Go ahead. That's him. They have him. If they would pull him over, they're in the SUV, your cop. They have him directly in front of him. The cop needs to turn right. I'm not going to go in there. I'm just going to pull over. Desert Horizons Country Club. There he is. That's the guy with the gun. Okay? So he says he's not going to go in there. All right? He says he's going to pull over. But as we'll see in a moment, he tries to follow the cop right in there, right after he says he's going to pull over. I counted 4 times in the 911 transcript where the caller says the word gun. And not once does he mention the fact that Royce Robertson told him and attempted to show him it was only a BB gun. That's fishy. No way around it. You mention gun and people assume deadly. You don't mention BB, nobody will suspect it is. And when the 911 caller was interviewed by officers, they did not bother to ask him why he neglected to mention this to the 911 dispatch. They didn't seem to care or think it mattered. Probably because if word got out that cops shot and killed a man brandishing a BB gun, that would make for damaging headlines that could make the department look really bad, even if it does appear to have been justified in the body cam footage released a couple months later. And this word brandishing, this is a word that the cops use a lot. I forgot the number code, but there's a number code that indicates brandishing of a gun, 419 or something like that. And if you notice, in that video you watched, the 911 caller says that he brandished a gun into his face. Doesn't mention it's a BB gun. But do people normally talk that way? Like, if someone shoves a gun in my face, I'm going to call 911 and go, oh my God, a guy stuck a gun in my face. I'm not going to go, a man just brandished a gun in my face. Like, that's kind of legal talk. Now, here's a video of the Desert Horizons Country Club guard. This is just after the shooting occurred, and he just sort of walks out there. Now, you can see there's very good surveillance footage. There's people that live here at this resort, okay? They live in this area. Rich people, all right? So this is a place that's going to have a lot of surveillance, a lot of clear footage. We don't have an interview with this guard anywhere. What we have is the investigators' summary interpretation of the interview, which is always interesting when you observe whose interviews they choose to include in their raw form and whose they choose to include only in a interpretive form. But anyway, this is what we've got. So this is what the Deputy Brown said. He told me prior to the shooting, the black Mercedes entered the main gate and the driver contacted him. The driver requested the guard open the gate so he could turn around because the police were following him. The subject showed the guard a gun, told him it was a BB gun, then mentioned he was fearful the police would shoot him. Now, what's weird about that? Well, everything is weird about that, but he's showing him the gun and saying, oh, the police are going to shoot me because it's a BB gun, and they're going to think it's real. Well, first of all, this shows that Royce Robertson doesn't want to die suicide by cop because he's afraid they're going to shoot him. If he wanted to die suicide by cop, wouldn't he be glad, like, yeah, hopefully they'll shoot me and think, you know what I mean? He's also telling the guard that it's a BB gun, all right? He told the 911 caller that it was a BB gun, and he's telling the guard it's a BB gun. He's trying to let everyone he meets knows that this isn't a real gun. The guard said a man pulled up to the gate and asked if he could open the gate so he could complete a U-turn. The guard said this occurred a lot because most people do not realize the left light is a no U-turn light. Why is the guard trying to make this sound like some normal occurrence? Okay, yeah, maybe it is normal for people to need to complete a U-turn because they don't know they can't turn, make a U-turn at the light. But do they also present you with a gun while the police are chasing him? Is that normal, Mr. Guard? The man, Royce Robertson, advised the guard to tell the cop behind him to stop following him. The man picked up a handgun and held it in his hands. He did not point the gun at the guard. The man stated the gun was just a BB gun, and he was afraid that cops were going to think it was a real weapon and shoot him. Nothing with his demeanor and or body language seemed out of the ordinary. He told the man to just put down the gun, pull over, and put his hands up and tell the police it was not a real weapon. The guard opened the gate and the man drove through. People live in this country club, people with money, okay? There's, what is he doing letting a man who just showed him a gun, who seems crazy, letting him in there? He's making it sound so normal. Oh, he just showed me the gun, no big deal. And the thing is, if Royce Robertson just simply doesn't point the gun at the cops, they're not going to kill him. So what is he afraid of? Is he saying that he's not in control of his own actions? Because that's the only way he would get shot, is if he, his hand just took the gun out against his own will, you see? So this kind of shows the state of mind of Royce Robertson. If we're to believe what the guard is saying, it sounds like Royce Robertson is in a dissociated state of mind. He's in a state of mind where he can't control his own actions. What caused that? How did he get to that mental state? So everyone but the cops now know that this may just be a BB gun and not a real gun. Here's the 911 caller's car. It's a Hyundai, which he described as beige and got described in other parts of the report as being gray. And I think this guard actually said it was green. So we're getting all these different descriptions of his car. Yet we don't have very many clear pictures of it, which should be cause for anyone to be suspicious about some of these basic details. And here we are, we're looking at one of the clearest pictures of his car, all right? From camera 6 here, the surveillance footage. And oh, oops, it's black and white, so we can't determine the color. You think that was done on purpose? There are 21 video files in this report that are not viewable. Most of them are labeled similar to this, 21 Highway 111 entry guest lane. Okay, that's pretty specific. That's what we're looking at, the entry guest lane. Or something similar. Obviously, these videos contain more footage of the entry guest lane where Royce Robertson entered and would likely show his interaction with the guard, possibly even with sound. There are plenty of videos in this report that work just fine. So why should these files in particular be any different? Yet these are the only files in the entire report that will not load properly. I tried changing the file type, I tried opening them with different apps, and I tried both a Mac and a PC. If they didn't want them released, they could have just not included them here at all. But by including the files that won't load, they can say, we released all the footage, not our fault if you can't get them to load. Anyway, so the 911 caller is facing Royce Robertson's car. Look at that. Some guy threatens you with a gun. You believe the gun is real, even though he tells you it's a BB gun. You believe it's real. You're terrified, right? And you chase him down as he flees the scene, which I don't think any sane person would do. You drive in and you're facing him. The fact of the matter is it was a 417 and the guy brandished a weapon. I guess 417 is code for the brandishing of a weapon. They put that over the air. But I saw the black vehicle pointing at me as I'm going in. So I kind of shit myself a little bit because poor positions. And I realize it now that I'm sitting here looking straight at a 417 suspect vehicle that, I know for one, armed with a handgun. This guy's literally got the ability to point right at me as I'm coming in. So he's basically saying exactly what I was just saying in terms of the positioning here. Obviously, the deputy didn't have any clue that Royce Robertson had a BB gun or that it might be a BB gun. Because again, it all goes back to the 911 caller's call to dispatch where he didn't mention anything about the possibility of it being a BB gun. I stayed where I was at for a minute. I was next in line to the security guy. And then I pulled up to the security guy and say, hey, this guy has a gun. You should shelter. And I backed up my car up and around and off to the side. So I'm facing directly at the guy. He's looking right at me with his eyes. He knows I'm there, and then I called 911 and stuff. So then I'm thinking, wait a minute, what if that gun's real? He could shoot right at me. Okay, that was a quote from the 911 caller. Yeah, duh. He could shoot at me. I mean, it just seems so very obvious. And it's only occurring to him now. Deputy Doyle watched the suspect, Royce Robertson, grab an unknown item from the passenger seat, show it to the security guard, and put the item back on the passenger seat. Deputy Doyle initially thought the item might be a gun, but the security guard did not appear to be alarmed and opened the access gate. So this is what the first officer arriving on the scene saw. Okay, he's just sitting there watching this. Okay, if you watch the video, they said that that Deputy Doyle attempted a traffic stop, meaning he told Royce to pull over. I don't see that in the report anywhere. So, it doesn't really match up. But in fact, Deputy Doyle, what he actually said in the report was that he wasn't going to attempt a traffic stop until backup showed up. So what Deputy Doyle says in this report contradicts what the critical incident video says. Royce ends up going through the gate, and this is what he saw. And he sat there and watched Royce reach for something that he thought might be a gun, and he didn't do anything about it, even though he supposedly believes that it's a deadly handgun, okay? If he thinks the guy might have a gun and he goes to grab for something, you got to assume the worst, because if you don't, he might shoot that guard, and then now the blood's on your hands because you didn't do anything, you see? And the RP, that's the 911 caller, I remember seeing him, parked outside the gate. They tried to follow me in, but then they backed up. So possibly the RP, that stands for responding party, I believe, or reporting party, I believe. It was a holiday, so traffic was kind of light. So the reporting party, I believe, is the 911 caller. And look, here he is. We talked about this in a previous blog, okay? So we're inside the country club now, and we're looking out towards the street, and there's a mysterious car there, which we now know, this report confirms, is the 911 caller. So Deputy Doyle said that guy tried to follow him in, even though he told 911 dispatch that he was going to pull over and he wasn't going to go in. What pushed Royce Robertson over the edge? Now, I know that we're looking at a lot of details and picking things apart and noticing that things look strange and don't look right. But I'm not saying that there wasn't anything actually wrong with Royce Robertson. I mean, the video is pretty conclusive. If nothing else, it's pretty clear that he is in an extremely distressed state. I mean, who does this? Especially given the fact that what we know about Royce Robertson, by all accounts, he was a wonderful guy, didn't have a violent bone in his body, loved life, had a hunger for life, and was just starting businesses left and right, had all these skills, was really intelligent too, apparently. But there does appear to have been a dark side here that blew up. So where did that come from? Well, there were some very obvious reasons why Royce Robertson would have been very stressed out, to put it mildly. So here's a quote again from his parents. Well, financially, with the COVID, yes, his business at the coffee shop, that's Joshua Tree Coffee, probably was down quite a bit because the cafes were shut. And yeah, financial problems. And he said at one point, COVID, affected 80% of his business at the coffee company. Think about that, okay? That's a major cut in income. And not just that, he didn't just have to deal with the stresses of the financial losses, but he also had to deal with, employees that he couldn't employ or pay as much. So that probably took a big toll on him as well. More quotes from his parents. And he was going to do clothing, but he got machinery, equipment at Juniper. Unbelievable machinery from the South that dies. I mean, you'd have to see it to believe it. He put thousands and thousands of dollars in this equipment to make the material, the hemp. He was getting thread from China, tens of thousands. We're talking like 200,000 but he bought the building. It's on Juniper. He owned that building up until last week, and he's technically renting it to pay taxes and other things. We have a crop of rats up here. All the equipment at wires got chewed up by rats. They were chewing through all the wiring on the weaving machine, and thousands of dollars on their car, their washing machine, anything electrical. Catastrophic this year. Okay, so not only did he deal with his company taking an 80% loss in profits, but he had these ideas for new companies, this clothing company, this hempwear, which I saw this on a screenshot from his Facebook page. He was talking about it before he died. So he had all this machinery to make these clothes from scratch, and it all got destroyed by a bunch of rats that chewed through the wires. Was this sabotage? Was there someone who had it out for Royce Robertson? And he took a loan out on his house, which was free and clear, a loan against his home. It's probably not healthy, but he doesn't talk about his finances. His parents say that Royce did talk about a lot of things. He was pretty open. His parents say that they were very open with communication. And in fact, he had just gone there the previous Wednesday. He went to his parents every week to pick up some food that they made for him, some rice dish that he really liked. So even though communication was tapering a little bit, they do say that, they didn't stop communicating. They were still talking. So Royce, was able to maintain appearances enough to where his parents weren't expecting this at all. His parents again said about Royce, he has Joshua Tree coffee, and next to it, he has the colloidal silver, which helps with viruses like COVID. His big thing was helping the community. He has all this equipment that he has a lab on Juniper for healing that he was making to help people. People who didn't have money, he would give it to them. If they only had $5, he would take that. Now, apparently, he had very sophisticated machinery and lasers to create this colloidal silver. And if you look this up, this is something that a lot of people are interested in. It's supposed to help with immunity. So he was apparently using it to help get people's immune system stronger to fight the COVID as a sort of alternative to vaccines. And we all know how badly people got treated that try to talk about any sort of alternative cures other than the approved vaccines. Royce was working on something like this. And, this equipment he had, if that was all at the warehouse too and got destroyed, the amount of loss that occurred there, and this was all presumably going to take him out of the hole that he got put in because of the lockdown, because his business was down so much. It was recovering, seemed like it was starting to recover quite well, but it hadn't fully recovered. And then all his chances to really come roaring back just get ruined. It's like a $200,000 car, and he's got debt at this point. He owes on that car. I think he bought it in Arizona. So that's the vehicle that Royce Robertson was last driving when he died, that real nice Mercedes. So he was still paying for that too. So we're going to revisit a quote from the 9/11 caller regarding when everyone was approaching and going inside the Desert Horizons Country Club. And I backed my car up and around and off to the side. So I'm facing directly at the guy. He's looking right at me with his eyes. He, Royce Robertson, knows I'm there, and then I called 911 and stuff. Wait a minute. I thought he called 911 way back when they were at the Chase Bank, and he was following Royce Robertson, and he was talking to dispatch. So he's saying, this is all one sentence. I didn't edit this. See? He knows I'm there, and then I called 911 and stuff. The electrician then said he heard approximately 4 shots, and 911 caller said They got him. He's down. All right, so this is a quote from the electrician where he heard the shots that killed Royce Robertson. Okay, wait a minute. He just called 911, didn't he? So how did the electrician hear this? That means he must have hung up with 911 again and then called his electrician again. You see how weird this story gets when it may seem like I'm being over analytical here, but if they're counting on people not being over analytical so that they don't catch all these oddities. So I got my coffee and ran over into the thing, guard shack, and kept trying to tell the guy, that's the guard, to quit going out there. But he was trying to deal with traffic, and they asked me to leave so the paramedics could get in. That's a quote from the 911 car. So that the guard is watching the toll booth, and he's lifting the gate or closing it or keeping it open or whatever he's doing, and he's dealing with traffic, according to the 911 car. Well, what is he doing with what traffic is there? They asked me to leave so the paramedics could get in. So in other words, the paramedics couldn't get in because the 911 caller's car was in the way. His car was blocking traffic. There's his car right there. So the 911 caller's car is blocking traffic, and the guard is out there dealing with traffic. What does that sound like? Are they forming a blockade? Blocking the traffic off so nobody can come in, as if they know what's going to happen. They know that Royce Robertson isn't going to try to flee and bust through here and shoot at them and kill them. Deputy Doyle stopped his patrol vehicle behind the suspect vehicle. The suspect backed up to within feet of the front of his patrol vehicle and stopped. The suspect yelled for Deputy Doyle to kill him, shoot him, and in my existence. That's supposed to be what Royce Robertson said, in my existence. Deputy Doyle believed the suspect was going to shoot and kill him, or Deputy Judge. All right, so when Royce Robertson pulled in, he parked like this, facing the gate, as we know. So Deputy Doyle is saying he pulled in, and then Royce backed up to within just a few feet of him. Why did he do this? The only thing I can think is to position himself either to flee or for the surveillance cameras, like to be in the right spot. Deputy Doyle, he's hearing Royce Robertson say to kill him, to shoot him, and in my existence. What I heard was end existence. Okay, so we're getting conflicting reports on what he actually said in the report itself. So you've got to listen to it and use your own ears, and you decide what you hear him say. I can see the two of them communicating. I could see mouths moving, but I couldn't hear shit. I didn't hear anything. It was the weirdest sensation. The second I got out of my car was like my focus was a scarecrow-looking dude and those two guys, but I didn't hear them. I could see Doyle's mouth moving. I could see this guy gesturing, and then I see the movement. I just see a gun pointed at Doyle. So at that point, I drew my gun and fired several rounds. I didn't hear my shots. I didn't hear Doyle's shots. It was like the Scarecrow in Wizard of Oz, but yet it was still, kind of puppetry, but just he had the build of a scarecrow. So that's what Deputy Judge said, the second deputy on the scene. And look at the wording he's using. I mean, this guy's obviously in shock. He just had to kill someone. You get the really raw emotion that this person is expressing here. And I think his description of Royce Robertson as being kind of like puppetry, like a scarecrow or something fake. I think this speaks to Deputy Judge picking up on Royce Robertson's dissociated state of mind. Royce doesn't seem to be in control of what he's doing. He's like out of control. And a puppet is controlled by something else. And the question is, what is controlling Royce Robertson? Some demon in his own head or something entirely different? And notice, Deputy Judge said he couldn't hear anything. He couldn't hear the shots. He couldn't hear anything anyone said. So the only document we have as, outside observers, the only real proof we have is the video itself. So the video becomes very important, obviously, to get to the bottom of what actually happened here, what was actually said, the words that came out of people's mouths. The guard said he was in and out of the security guard gate office talking on the radio and did not have visual of the incident the entire time. So yeah, he was directing traffic. He was operating the gate, I guess, unless people had lanyards, forming a blockade with the 911 car so people can't come in. Now here's an interesting statement from the 911 car. The 911 caller said he took cover by some bricks near the guard shack. 911 caller did see the suspect waving the gun in the air, but he said he believed the suspect was telling the deputies that the gun was a BB gun. I asked why he thought that, and he said it was because he was pointing at the gun with his left hand, but he couldn't hear what was being said. I asked if he had it pointed at the deputies. He said the suspect must have done something because they all responded at once. So the 911 caller is saying he saw Royce Robertson point at his gun. I didn't see Royce Robertson do that in the video, and he didn't hear anything. But he's convinced that Royce was trying to tell them it's just a BB gun. So you have witnesses at the scene seeing, hearing, or not hearing things that we can't observe in the video. So what does that mean? It means that the body cam footage probably didn't capture everything as conclusive as we may think it is. Maybe there's sound manipulation. Maybe the sound was altered. Maybe someone edited the video. And you can see here, look at this subtitle. It says, "End my existence." Right here, he's not saying "end my existence." He says "end existence." Why does that matter? Because end existence means end existence as a whole. End my existence means end my particular existence. So did the person who put these subtitles here, did they add that "my" in there just to sort of make it more obvious what the intent was there? One of the deputies said he heard "in my existence." Did he just say "my"? Did the deputy throw that word "my" in there for the same reason? Was he being dishonest? Because again, if you listen to the video, he says "end existence." The body cam footage would not be very difficult to manipulate. It's very short. It's very quick. The camera's very shaky. There's lots of things you could do that no one could detect. Have you ever been in a film music production studio? I bet the 911 caller has, since he did state he once had a production company in LA in one of the interviews in this report. Recorded sounds and video can easily be cut, pasted, altered, or deleted without most people being able to tell the difference. Doesn't mean that happened here, but it's certainly possible, and we've seen the motive for doing so. I believe the 911 caller also stated he was involved in acting at one point. But there does seem to be evidence that there is some kind of entrapment operation happening here. The full body cam video shows what occurred in the minutes after Royce Robertson was shot and killed. As deputies attempted to administer CPR, bleeps and visual blurring is placed to obscure sounds and visuals as Royce Robertson lay bleeding. I can understand to a degree not wanting to release clear footage of Royce Robertson's bloody final moments. But was this also done to obscure the planting of evidence upon his body? My most conservative opinion regarding what happened here is that Royce Robertson was indeed under much stress and might even have inadvertently succumbed to negative influences which drove him to this tragic place and time. The toxicology report showed he had THC in his system. Rumor has it he was open to the use of mushrooms and possibly even stronger hallucinogenics in the recent months before he died. It is conceivable that all of these factors led to his tragic shift into a desperate state of dissociation, where he did and said things not consistent with the person most knew as Royce Robertson. To take another position on what happened here, I would start by noting some pretty strong evidence that the Riverside County Sheriff's Department was covering things up, possibly even altering the evidence, in order to control public perception around an incident that could make them look very bad during a heated period where defund the police was trending. So I'm not necessarily disputing the idea that deputies were justified in shooting Royce Robertson here. but it must be acknowledged that they did have a very strong motive to make sure public perception leaned that way, regardless of how conclusive the body cam footage may have been. To take a more extreme position, were there individuals looking to sabotage Royce Robertson for various reasons? Did his work on silver nanoparticles, his international correspondences, and thousands of dollars worth of investments land him on a blacklist of sorts? Were people sent out there to sort of ruin him and bring him to his knees? Was this suicide by cop incident some sort of sophisticated entrapment operation where a mentally unstable Royce Robertson was to end up dead one way or the other, and that members of law enforcement and other bad actors may have been consciously involved with to varying degrees? So the burning questions here ultimately are, number one, what happened to Royce Robertson's wallet, and what banking transaction did he potentially conduct just before the initial brandishing incident? Who would have wanted that covered up, and why? Second burning question would be, why did the 9/11 caller tell dispatch that a man threatened him with a gun without informing them that Royce Robertson told and attempted to show him it was just a BB gun? Third question is, did a freak invasion of rats really ruin all of Royce Robertson's equipment at his warehouse on Juniper Street, or was it sabotage?